Hey guys, what is up, and I welcome each and every one of you to a new League of Legends video. Today we'll be taking a look at all of the changes coming next patch, being patch point 9.6, and there's quite a bit to cover. So as per usual, if you end up enjoying the video or found it useful, then don't forget to hit that like button. But this video will be made in collaboration and edited by ProGuides. It's a website that helps you improve your overall League of Legends gameplay and knowledge. The link is down below, it's completely free as well, and of course right now is the perfect time to check it out. So the very first thing we're going to be talking about is some updated changes coming out for the bounty system. I'm sure we all know, love, and sometimes hate the bounty system because, well, this thing can definitely swing games in another team's favor. But let's take a look at what Riot is changing about the bounty system. So starting off with the CS bounties. Now this is the most controversial one. People usually get really upset that they have a bounty on their head just simply for out CSing their laner. Well, now CS bounties will be roughly 25% smaller and account for support item gold. CS bounties will now also decrease whenever you lose your advantage for whatever reason. So in other words, the CS bounty will be dynamic, which is good. The support item gold contributes to bounties as well. On top of this, the scoreboard now in 9.6 will only show the bounty gold as opposed to what it currently shows, which is the bounty gold plus the base kill gold. This will make it much more streamlined and make it much more understandable as well as to how much your bounty is actually worth, because at the moment, since the bounty is also added with the actual base gold of your death, it was very kind of deceptive. So all in all, boys and girls, it'll just be simply streamlined, and also it'll be worth less for the CS bounty specifically. But moving along, let's talk about the changes coming over to the champion. Starting things off is going to be a quick buff coming over to Kayle towards her ultimate, where the damage is just simply being increased across the board. This, on top of the buff that happened to Kayle several patches ago that increased the range on her ultimate as well, is going to make this ability quite powerful. Besides, an extra 50 damage at rank 1 is surprisingly a lot, and that's going to surprise people quite a bit in the lane whenever they get hit by it, thinking they'll survive when in fact they actually won't. Next up, we also have a nerf coming over to Ezreal towards his W, Essence Flux, where the detonation damage now only deals 50% damage to structures. This is overall a pretty good change because at the moment, Ezreal with his W into the Sheen auto attack onto the tower is incredibly powerful. He takes towers very fast, though I do say it's not as fast as someone like Tristana, but at the same time, that is what Tristana excels at, so I guess it kind of makes sense. But all in all, Ezreal will be a bit less effective whenever it comes to destroying turrets. Following this, a very quick buff coming over to Gnar as well towards his W, where the cooldown on this ability has actually been lowered to 7 at all ranks. At the moment, it actually starts at 15 by rank 1. Now don't forget, this only is going to be affecting his Mega Gnar form because, well, his small Gnar form of course doesn't actually have a W, right? It's only a passive, and only Mega Gnar actually has this as an actual ability where it has a cooldown. But regardless, a pretty decent buff because even at rank 1, well, the W now is less than half of the old cooldown. Next up, we have a bug fix, which apparently is also a buff coming towards Hecarim. Now, apparently there's a buff fix on Hecarim with his Q ability where it's supposed to deal 10% more damage per stack of Q that he has, but apparently that part of the spell wasn't working. And I mean, I'm a little bit surprised because I feel like Hecarim has been doing more or less fine, but after this quote-unquote bug fix, which is also a buff, Hecarim will definitely be quite powerful in the next patch, so you may want to watch out for him. Next up, some changes coming over to Jace as well, a champion that's apparently very strong at the very moment and in the right hands can easily take control of a game. The nerfs are as follows. It's going to be just to his base stats, where his health, HP per level, HP per 5, and HP per 5 per level have all been lowered across the board. So in other words, he'll have less HP to just deal with and play with overall. Now the next change might come as a surprise to some people, but it's actually going to be a nerf, believe it or not, a nerf coming over to Kayle. Apparently Kayle at the moment is actually quite powerful if you play her correctly, so they're actually going to be nerfing her down a few notches. Her AD per level is being lowered, her attack speed per level is being lowered, and her W's bonus movement speed from AP is also being lowered. I'm not too surprised about them lowering the bonus movement speed from her W because that thing was pretty much just you going full steroid NOS mode or something like that, but I'm a little bit surprised that they're actually lowering her AD and attack speed per level. And I'm also very curious to see how this is actually going to affect the champion because I still feel like she's not that fantastic. I mean, she's very kind of okay at the moment, but I feel like this might make her technically a little bit subpar, but I guess we'll see when the changes come to the live servers. Following this, a very quick nerf coming over to LeBlanc, a champion that's known to just be absolutely menacing in the laning phase, while her Q ability, Sign of Malice, is going to be having its AP ratio lowered by 10%. So this will make her W Q harass with an auto tag just a little bit less threatening, but more so as you actually get later onto the game, which I think is kind of the wrong way to nerf her, because at the moment she's kind of weak in my opinion late game, since it's very hard to play her correctly at that stage. She's just very powerful in the laning phase, right? People pick her just to stomp lane. So at the moment, if you don't, or if you don't really transition your lead properly, you're going to have a lot of issues, and now with this nerf, you're going to have even more issues as you get more and more later into the game. But speaking of Kayle nerfs, Morgana, her sister, is also receiving some nerfs as well, where her HP per 5 is being lowered and her W, Tormented Shadows, AP ratio, the per second damage, is being lowered from 16% down to 14%. The change on her W after her, I guess, quote-unquote rework was actually surprisingly quite powerful. I mean, if the champion or the minion or whatever is below half HP, it starts wrapping up in damage significantly. I mean, that thing really starts to hurt. So again, not too surprising that she is receiving some nerfs on that W ability, but other than that, her ultimate is still remaining intact with the movement speed, which I think is still a very big plus. Moving along, however, we have some buffs coming over to our favorite under the water dude, which is Nautilus. Now his base armor is being increased by a decent amount, I mean just under 5, which isn't horrible, but Staggering Blow, his passive, the per target CD has been changed to now 6 seconds flat rather than starting at 9 and then going down to 6. This will make his team fighting power a lot stronger, since now he can apply his passive more often to the same champion just over and over, but it'll also be more powerful in the laning phase, since now he can actually apply this passive more frequently in his trades, which is a pretty big plus as well, especially when it comes to setting up a jungler. So I wouldn't be surprised to see more Nautilus top lane or even support in the next patch. A very quick yet important buff coming over to NiKo in the next change. Now, as I'm sure most of you know, AD NiKo or on-hit NiKo, attack speed NiKo, or whatever you want to call it, was extremely overpowered just this patch, or at least in the earlier parts of this patch, to the where Riot literally had to hotfix it just a few days later. Now, during that hotfix, Riot did nerf this AD NiKo on-hit build by reducing the damage on the W, reducing her attack speed per level, and AD as well. But it seems like Riot apparently went a little bit overboard, because now for this patch apparently NiKo is actually getting a buff to the attack speed per level to, I guess, make up for the nerf. Now surprisingly, even now AD NiKo is actually still pretty decently strong even after those nerfs, so I'm a little bit skeptical about this buff. I feel like this will make her potentially a little bit too strong once again, but I guess we'll see once it hits the live servers. Next up, we also have a quick nerf coming over to Rek'Sai, where her ultimates, cooldown, and bonus AD ratio have both been lowered across the board, which again isn't very surprising. This ultimate is incredibly powerful, and Rek'Sai is incredibly powerful as well. Next up, we also have some buffs coming over to Shanna, a champion that we don't see too often at the very moment, but maybe this will change it. The buff is towards his Q ability Twilight Assault, where the on-hit damage is just flat out being increased based on the level. Again, don't forget that this is per auto attack, right? He gets 3 auto attacks with his Q ability, so it's a little bit more of a buff than it may seem initially on paper. Next up, we have some unfortunate nerfs coming to my boy Silas, where his W, Kingslayer, the healing multiplier at low health has been decreased from 200% down to 175%, and the healing AP ratio has also been lowered by 5%. So in other words, his W is overall just less effective now because of the healing AP ratio being lowered, but it's also even more less effective now when it's at lower HPs. Very quickly, I wanted to announce that the Teemo rework, again since it went onto the PvE server with some new changes, has once again been taken off of the PvE server. So in other words, it's not going to be put into this patch, and it'll probably come back in the next patch on PvE for further testing. But moving along, some quick buffs coming over to Trundle with his W, Frozen Domain, where the bonus attack speed has actually been changed to now giving him 10% extra at rank 1, and it slowly evens out by rank 5 being 100%, which is currently what it is as well. But I want to move into the next change because this is a very big one. It's URGOT's mini rework. Now, I did talk about it before in a video, but let's go over it one more time very quickly. So his mana cost is being increased and his mana regeneration growth is also being increased. His passive no longer deals reduced damage to enemies hit by it in the last 5 seconds, so I guess it's a little bit better. But here's where things get a little bit spicy. His W no longer gives him a shield. The cost is actually being lowered, so by rank 5 it's actually 0 mana. The cooldown is also being lowered to where by 5 it's also 0 cooldown, and the on-hit damage reduction is being lowered by just a bit. So that in itself is already going to be quite interesting. I don't know why they're doing this. But moving on to his E ability, now this actually gives him a shield instead of his W. The damage has been changed to where the base damage has been increased at the earlier ranks but slightly lower at the later ranks. However, it now scales off of 100% bonus AD rather than 50% total AD. The cooldown is now 14 seconds at all ranks rather than starting at 16 then going down to 12, and the mana cost has also been increased. And last but not least, his ultimate, the range is being heavily increased, the cast time is being very slightly increased, and the damage is also being changed to where now it's just much higher on the base values, but it scales only on bonus AD rather than total AD. So yeah, I mean, some pretty interesting changes to say the least coming over to URGOT. I honestly don't even know what to think about it, so I guess we'll just wait for it to come to the live servers? I don't know. But what I do know is the fact that Xayah's buff is going to be potentially quite good for her. Her W, Deadly Plumage, the attack speed is just overall being increased by an extra 20% by rank 5. Now, 20% for an AD carry by, obviously later on to the game is a decent amount, and especially for someone like Xayah to get those feathers out even faster, that's going to be a very nice buff. And the final change coming over to champions is of course going to be towards Zoe, where her Sleepy Trouble Bubble, the E ability, the cooldown has been increased and the slow has been lowered as well. Honestly, not that big of a nerf, I don't really think. I mean, it's only 2 seconds by rank 5 increase on the cooldown. The slow, I mean, who even cares about the slow? Let's be honest here, that doesn't matter whatsoever. The issue is the fact that you're put to sleep and you can't really do much about it. That's the biggest issue, but yeah, at least the cooldown increase on her E ability is a nerf in the right direction. Now some final quick things to talk about. We have Brawler's Glove, where the critical strike chance on this item is no longer unique, so you can actually stack it as you get items that build out of several Brawler's Gloves. We have some quick changes coming over to Minion Dematerializer, where the amount of charges have been lowered by half, but the damage bonus has been increased up to 6% now. The damage bonus on same minion type has also been increased to 3% rather than 1%, and the starting cooldown has been lowered as well. So honestly, overall a pretty good change, because at least now it makes it a little bit easier to use overall, and it's going to get its effectiveness out much faster. On top of this, it also swapped places on the rune tree itself with Minion Dematerializer and Hextech Flash Traption. And the final thing is Overheal is getting a nerf, where the earlier shield values have just been flat out lowered. But that's going to be about it for this video, guys. Also, don't forget, of course, the cat versus dog event is, at least should be, coming out this patch, so let me know down below which side you're choosing. But yeah, either way, guys, thank you so much for watching. There you have it, a bunch of changes, URGOT mini rework, and a whole other stuff as well. So let me know what you think about it down below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to hit that like button, share with your friends, subscribe if you haven't, check out my other videos as well, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.